This film begins with a man named Colin Evans that has been to prison for 5 years and asking his parole hearing. He was the primary suspect in the disappearance and death of the 5 young women. But he claims he is a changed man and has been rehabilitated. One of those is teaching other prisoners to read and write. A psychologist that has learned his case is saying he's quite a good liar and has a malignant narcissist character. So, the parole board denies his release and sent him back to prison for another 5 years. On the way back to prison, he pretends to having a nosebleed. He's pointing the gun to the officer until they had a fight gun at each other. He kills the van's driver and the officer and escapes with the van. The story goes into another man named Jeffrey who packs his stuff and has a plan to visit his dad's house. He decides to stay by himself and leaves his wife at home with their kids. On the other side, Colin visits his girlfriend's house, Alexis. She looks shocked to see him back. He comes to ask her about the reason why she never replies all his letters. She begins to scared. It reveals that he has sneaked into her house when she's not home. He also found a letter from his new boyfriend and those letters from him that was never even opened yet. She tries to run away from him while he chases her. The situation seems uncontrolled for both of them until she says, "Yes, me and my boyfriend did sex right here in this bed all the time and it's great." He's getting mad at her. He begins to strangle her neck, hit her hard with a bedroom lamp until she dies. He runs away by a car. He drives and begins to lose his sight because of the storm. The car is losing its balance and hitting a tree. Meanwhile, Terry, after finishing the thing with her second kid and preparing a dinner for her first kid. A sound of bell is ringing. When she opens the door, she doesn't even recognize who is he. That stranger is Colin who needs some help. Apparently, he suffered from his accident. He says he wants to borrow her phone to call a tow car. Because of the storm, it might take a long time to wait, and she decides to let him in. She treats his injuries, and he meets her first daughter, it's Ryan. She says his husband will be home soon. She gives him a dry shirt. They begin to make a little conversation about anything. It concludes, she and her husband are a lawyer. Before she married, she used to work as a prosecutor in the homicide division. After that, he sneaks into her room. He looks at her deeply and asks her, "Are you looking for your husband?" She admits her husband isn't coming home. Their conversation is interrupted with Terry's friend, Meg, who comes to her house. And then, Terry introduces her to Colin. Meg asks him where he lives. He replies, River Road. She is a realtor. She thinks she knows every corner of River Road's house names, but he can't answer. Suddenly, they both are interrupted by the sound of a broken branch. At that point, he saves himself from Meg's question. They tour to the kitchen for having a drink together. He plans to smoke on the balcony and she approaches him. And they're having a smoke together. She begins to talk to him about his relationship with Terry. She accuses them of having an affair, but he tries to convince her if it's the fact. He makes into a conflict between them both. The reason why Terry doesn't tell her, it's because she feels she's not even feel really close with Meg. As her best friend, she doesn't even believe every word that came from his mouth. He's totally full of shit. She goes away to call Terry. In the meantime, she puts her baby to sleep. At the moment, he hits her with a shovel until she dies. He is such a horrible psychopath. After she has done it, she asks him, "Where is Meg?" He answers she changed her mind and left the house. It looks like she knows he lied because her umbrella is still there. She leaves him and decides to call her. Turns out, the phone cord is broken, so she can't call her. And the scene shows us if all the knives are taken, all the power is turned off. She's quickly going into her kid's room to make sure everything is all right. And then, she sees Colin who plays with her kid, Ryan, and accidentally, her eyes notice a gun in his pocket. In a hurry, she puts her kid to sleep and they both go out. When he talks to her, she takes a fire extinguisher to squirt him and hits his head until he falls off from the stairs and fainted. Without thinking twice, she's quickly taking her baby and wakes her first kid up. The planning changes by the fact he awakes and asks her to put her baby back. He goes into the bathroom to clean up himself with Terry inside in order she's not run away. He changes his clothes and asks her to change one too. He forces her to turn around. Then, he sees her body. She is scared and begs him to don't do anything to her. When he wears his shoes, she straightly hit his head until he weaks. She tries to run away to the room, locks the door, and calls 911. Unfortunately, he comes and points his gun at her. When she's being threatened by him, she takes a chance to stab him with a knife. He shoots his gun. Now, she can't do anything and begins to beg him to go away because she has called the police and they are on the way. He ignores her offer, forces her to take her kids, and follows him. At the garage, she finds Meg's body that's full of blood. They go along by car as she drives the car. As shown, he looks unhealthy because lost a lot of blood. On the way, she passes her car to the police's car and tries to give them a signal by flashing the headlights car without him even realize. The police officer stops them and asks to pull over, but Colin puts her baby up as a threat, just in case she will tell the police. The police officer starts to interrogate them. At the moment, her kid, Ryan, asks her mom where his dad and all she wants is to go home. He feels something strange, so he decides to ask her out of the car and make sure if everything is all right or what. But she replies she's fine. She makes a fake statement by saying to him about having an affair with the man in the car. The police officer knows there's something wrong between them, and all of a sudden, Colin's out of the car and shoots him until he dies. He gets rid of his body into the ditch. He points his gun at her and threatens to kill her if she tries to tell everything. Then, they go back to the car. They arrive at Alexis's house, his girlfriend that he has murdered. Terry puts her kids to the bed while he asks her to take a first aid kit for him. She's startled to see a woman's corpse who lays down on the floor. At the moment, the lightning is making her alarm's car beeping and he plans to turn it off. Before he gets that, he ties up her body in case she's not run away. At the same time, Alexis's phone is ringing. She tries to cut her hand ties and answers the call. Not even she expected it, it's from Jeffrey, her husband. It proves that he has an affair with Alexis, and now she knows, so that's the reason why Colin came to her house. She is exactly shocked, but she tells him to call the police quickly. Meanwhile, Colin sees all of them are gone. He thinks they must have run away through the window, so he decides to chase them. He's wrong because Terry and her kids are hiding inside the house. When she is about to out, he is still in the front of the house. For temporarily, she puts her kids into a small warehouse. Suddenly, he hears a footstep from the top floor, and he knows she is still inside the house and looks for her. She stabs him with a knife until he falls, but he's too strong enough. He rises and points his gun at her, and she tells she knows everything. So, she explains the reason why he came to her life. It's because her husband is having an affair with his girlfriend. All of a sudden, Ryan comes. With a chance she has, she kicks his cock and pushes him away. Awfully, he strangles her neck too tight. She takes a key that closes with her and stabs into his wound many times. He beats her, but she fights him back until she thought he's fainted. Sick, he wakes up. They get into another fight again. At this point, she falls off on the floor where his gun fell. She grabs his gun and shoots him 100 times until he's finally dead and thrown out the window. Everything's done. That was a horrible moment she had. Here he goes. Jeffrey comes to Alexis's house. There are some police officers there. He meets his wife, Terry, and says for apologies. What a kind of man he is. She looks really mad, punches him until he falls, and leaves him away. They're just done. The story changes with Terry, who moves into a new house. As you can see, she rents a nanny for their kids as she back to work. She looks happy with her new life.